Hello, my name is Dr. Sam Hai. I am an internal medicine doctor, and thank you so much for watching. Welcome to Raw Talk. This is episode number 42. Raw Talk is where I go off the top of my head. It's unfiltered and unedited. I give you my thoughts and opinions on health. In this episode, I will be talking about the triangle of chronic disease: Big Pharma, Big Food, and Big Agriculture. What if I told you that chronic disease isn't just a medical problem? It's a business model. That the rising rates of obesity, diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer, and heart disease aren't just accidents of modern life, but symptoms of a broken system. Today, we're exposing the unholy trinity at the heart of this crisis: Big Pharma, Big Food, Big Agriculture. Together, they form the chronic disease matrix, feeding off each other and profiting from your pain. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a history lesson, a financial trail, and a public health wake-up call. The chronic disease matrix begins with a simple formula. Big Agriculture grows the ingredients. Big Food turns them into addictive, hyper-processed products. And Big Pharma sells the drugs to manage the fallout. And they're all funded, protected, and subsidized by the same government policies and lobbying efforts. Let's rewind to where it all started. After World War II, agriculture changed forever. We industrialized food production. We stopped rotating crops and started focusing on mass monoculture: corn, soy, wheat. Why? Because these crops were cheap, subsidized, and shelf stable. They weren't grown for health. They were grown for profit. By the 1970s, this industrial food model collided with a new enemy: dietary fat. Ansel Keys and the flawed 7-country study demonized saturated fat and cholesterol. The government responded with the 1977 dietary guidelines, encouraging Americans to replace meat and eggs with grains and vegetable oils. Big Food and Big Agriculture rejoiced. They now had the scientific and political cover to flood the market with ultra-processed, high-carb, low-fat garbage and call it healthy. Let's start with Big Agriculture. These are the companies and policies that dictate how food is grown in America and around the world. You have Monsanto, Cargill, Bayer, DuPont. They grow monoculture crops, mostly corn, soy, and wheat, on nutrient-depleted land, using synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, and genetically modified seeds. These crops don't feed humans directly. They feed processed food factories, confined animal feeding operations, and biofuel refineries. The result? A food system built around quantity over quality. This system is government subsidized. You and I are paying for it through our taxes. And it's also environmentally destructive, killing soil microbiomes and polluting water. It's nutritionally bankrupt. Corn and soy don't nourish, they inflame. And let's not forget, these grains are the backbone of seed oils, the toxic omega 6 fats in everything from mayonnaise to muffins. And here's the kicker, these very same crops are pushed as healthy whole grains, a total inversion of reality. Big food is where these cheap subsidized crops are turned into chronic disease cocktails. Companies like Nestle, PepsiCo, General Mills, and Kellogg's, they engineer foods that hijack your brain's reward system. These products are high in sugar from corn syrup, high in seed oils from soy and canola, low in protein and low in micronutrients, and designed for shelf life, not health. Let me be clear. This is not food. This is food-like product created in labs, focus grouped to death, and marketed as heart healthy or low fat. They don't just sell you food, they sell you addiction. These companies hire neuroscientists to perfect the bliss point of sugar, fat, salt combos. They use cartoon characters and health claims to manipulate children and parents. They fund nutrition research to downplay the risk of sugar and seed oils. And they get away with it. They get away with it because of the revolving door between industry, academia, and government regulators. Remember the food pyramid? The one that told you to base your diet on 6 to 11 servings of bread and cereal? That was bought and paid for by big grain and big sugar. Now, here's where Big Pharma enters the picture. And it's not as a savior. As chronic diseases explode due to our broken food system, Big Pharma steps in, not to cure, but to medicate. Statins, SSRIs, PPIs, metformin, insulin, blood pressure meds, biologics. Each one of these drugs manages a symptom of metabolic dysfunction, but very few address the root cause, which is the toxic modern diet. This is by design. Pharmaceutical companies don't make money when you heal. They make money when you manage. Let's not forget, the same FDA that approves drugs also regulates food. Pharma companies fund the very medical schools that train our doctors. And the media that runs drug commercials is owned by the same conglomerates that sell you fast food. Doctors are trained to prescribe, not to prevent. Insurance pays for pills, not for grass-fed beef or lifestyle changes. And most tragically, patients are told that their disease is genetic or age-related, not a consequence of the food system making them sick. Here's the full picture of the triangle. Big agriculture creates the inputs: corn, soy, wheat. Big food turns them into processed, addictive products. And then Big Pharma steps in to sell the drugs that manage the metabolic chaos. And all of it is protected by government subsidies, industry-funded science, paid-off regulators, and a media system dependent on food and drug advertising. This is a self-reinforcing loop that turns people into lifelong customers. It starts in childhood with sugary cereals and Happy Meals. It ends in hospitals and pharmacies. And what's the worst part? Most people never know that this loop exists. Let's talk about the real cost. Obesity now affects over 40% of adults in the US. Diabetes rates have skyrocketed. Autoimmune disorders are affecting children younger than ever. Depression and anxiety are normalized. And SSRIs are handed out like candy. But what do? We blame the individual. We say, just eat less. Just eat less and move more. Everything in moderation. It's your fault. But what if the game is rigged? What if moderation doesn't work when your food is designed to override your biology? What if your cravings aren't a moral failure, but a consequence of engineered addiction? This isn't a willpower problem. This is a system problem. And the system is making trillions of dollars, keeping you sick, overweight, and dependent. So what's the escape hatch? One solution is to opt out of the matrix. That's where the carnivore diet comes in. When you cut out processed food, seed oils, grains, and sugar, and return to animal-based nutrition, you break the triangle. You stop funding big agriculture's monoculture madness. You stop consuming big food's engineered poison. And you stop needing Big Pharma's lifelong symptom management. You begin to heal. Carnivore is not a fad. It's a return to human biology. It's eating how we evolved for 2.5 million years. Nutrient-dense, bioavailable animal foods. Meat, fat, organs, salt, water. No labels, no barcodes, no ingredient lists. And guess what happens when you do this? Your blood sugar stabilizes. Inflammation drops. Your brain fog clears. Your energy returns. Your skin heals. Your anxiety fades. You unplug from the system. And the system hates that. Why do you think mainstream media attacks red meat? Why do experts push oat milk and veggie burgers? Why are doctors still parroting the saturated fat is bad line from the 1970s? Because there is no profit in simple ancestral health. A grass-fed ribeye doesn't require a factory. It doesn't have a marketing department. And it doesn't create lifelong customers. But a box of cereal, a statin, a diabetes drug, that's recurring revenue. You are far more valuable to the system sick, confused, and compliant. Here's the good news. You don't have to be. Big Pharma, big food, big agriculture, 3 arms of the same machine. operating under the illusion of choice, science, and health. But they are not your allies. They have built the chronic disease matrix, and billions of people are trapped inside. But you don't have to be. Start with your plate. Question everything. Eat real food. Prioritize animal fat and protein. And remember, every bite is a vote. A vote against corruption. A vote for health. A vote for freedom. This is more than a diet. This is a rebellion. Welcome to the other side. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment below. If you want to follow me on Instagram for more content, my username is Sam_HiMD. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video.